Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Ignition News. Today's news starts out with breaking news, but also commentary. Obviously, as we tune into the news to see that the United States of America has entered yet another illegal war of aggression, we are undoubtedly about to hear propaganda from the United States government, indeed the President of the United States, just saying that we will control the country of Venezuela in the transitional period. I'm sure it's not any surprise to you to learn as you wake up, but if it is news to you, the United States of America launched an unprecedented and illegal and unconstitutional attack on Venezuela, abducting and kidnapping the Venezuelan president under the guise of a military operation to prevent drugs from entering the United States of America. But before we get into today's top news headlines, I do want to let you know and provide a little bit of commentary today. We're already seeing headlines across the country and around the world, but the propaganda and spin machine is in overdrive. Here on the Ignition News, we're stopping the propaganda dead in its tracks. The headline is already being packaged like a movie trailer, by the way, a brilliant operation for justice against narco-terrorists. And when a government starts narrating war like it's content for Instagram, that is when you need to pay attention and get tuned in and put a check on that power. The New York Times editorial board didn't mince words about it this morning. They called this attack illegal and unwise, and they say the problem is basic and simple. If the president wants to launch a major military action, the Constitution says very clearly, this is not about vibes. You have to go to Congress and you have to get approval. And here's what this matters. It's not just another foreign policy disagreement. This is about whether the United States of America is going to pretend that law exists only for other people. The president seems to be approaching law, both foreign and international, sort of like it's Pokemon. He wants to break them all. The administration's public rationale about this is that it is, quote, narco-terrorism. But that rationale is, of course, absurd. Venezuela isn't the engine of America's drug crisis, and drug war language has a long history of being a sticker that we slap on military interventions. Let's talk about the toll. Trump's national security strategy, and when you read this, by the way, it's a document that was just released, is not subtle. It explicitly talks about asserting and enforcing Trump corollary to the Monroe Doctrine in the Western Hemisphere and around migration and, quote, narco-terrorists. So when the editorial board at the New York Times or here on the Ignition News or Americans waking up across the country wake up to this international terrorism, we have to understand what's really happening. This aggressive imperial posture towards Latin America, it is all a strategy, and we are breaking through the noise. This is setting, of course, a dangerous precedent for international military conflict and illegal use of the United States military. It is the clearest and most evident sign of the growing trend of unchecked Christian nationalism. The Guardian's legal experts actually go further, arguing that the strike likely violates the UN Charter's basic prohibition on using force against another country. Without UN authorization or real self-defense case, and of course the United States is going to claim self-defense, it is an illegal, unconstitutional, and amoral attack. After the operation, Trump says the U.S. will be, quote, very strongly involved in Venezuela's oil industry. That's not a dog whistle. It's a screeching bullhorn about why the president and this administration is getting involved. Of course, the core fear here is that we all remember what this is like, and any adult growing up in America should know that this kind of military adventurism does not end cleanly. They compare it to the posture, the hubris, or I'm thinking of President Bush on that aircraft carrier. We did it, right? We did it. We won. Victory. Of course, that's not the case. It wasn't the case. The thousands of Americans and millions of Iraqi and Afghan citizens paid the consequence of the United States' imperialism. The precedent doesn't just stay in Venezuela. It's a dangerous international precedent. And let me be very clear with you. We're used to being shocked by things that this administration does, things that this president says. Whether or not he knows what he is actually saying anymore at this point, of course, is open for debate. We're used to the shock, we're used to the awe, but this does not come without consequence. The United States and its imperial president wants to think that we can have all of the cost and none of the consequence. But these are your tax dollars. This is your future. This is your inflation, your veteran neighbors, your children put in the way of military conflict. But most importantly, the no wars president continues to engage in lying about his plans for international diplomacy while ignoring your basic needs. How many of you woke up today worrying about how you're going to pay for Christmas presents? How many of you put Christmas presents on Klarna? It's likely a lot. It's the largest that's ever happened. How many of you have to worry about how much the cost of groceries is? Yesterday, on my way home from work, I stopped at the store. I got a few things. I got vitamins. I got soda. I got vegetables. I did get a pack of beer. Yes, of course. And the total was $145. I looked down at the cart at this just lack of anything of any substance. $5. The cost of everything is increasing, but the cost of our safety is also increasing. We need to know, was there authorization from Congress? Well, we already know this. The answer is no. What's the mission? Well, the mission seems to be to distract from the Epstein files and maybe bleed the people of Venezuela of their natural resources to possibly lower the price of gas just a few cents. What is the exit plan? These are the kinds of things that you should have before you invade the country. But let us not forget, what is the mood and tone of the American public? We have been very clear for the last 2 decades that we're tired of these endless foreign intervention. If ever you woke up on a day thinking that 2026 was going to be an optimistic year, the attempt and the effort of this administration was clear. The effort was to shatter that optimism and to shatter that hope. But do not be blinded by the progress that we have taken. More Americans have taken to the street against this president, against this administration than in the history of the United States of America. The tenor, the tone, and the sentiment against this president is higher than it has ever been for any president in the history of this country. All that is to say, more Americans disagree with what is happening than agree with what is happening. And of course, your algorithms, your feed, your news is not going to tell you this because the billionaires have purchased the news. And then when we try to populate and propagate information on apps, what do? They buy the apps. That's why we have Ignition News. That's why we're doing this, to bring you the raw, unvarnished, uncensored takes of what is actually happening, the real news from the real American resistance. If you woke up today with a pit in your stomach, or how many of you, I would just ask the question today. I woke up this morning at 1:54 Pacific time with a deep pit in my stomach. I didn't think to check the news. Do you know why I didn't think to check the news? Because this is America. It's supposed to be the most prosperous, greatest country on earth. I shouldn't wake up with a pit in my stomach at night and think to myself, I wonder what's happening in the world, but I did. And I'm guessing many of you did the same thing as well. Friends, this is not the America that we want. This is not the America that we deserve. But most importantly, this is not the America that the Venezuelan people asked for or deserve. This endless quest for imperialism in the name of the billionaires and the elites has to stop. If you're tired of waking up in the middle of the night wondering what the hell is going on in the world, or how are you going to pay your bills, or if you're going to find a job, I just want you to know as I close out the commentary for today's show, if you know nothing else other than this one thing, it is that you are not alone. That concludes today's opening commentary for the Ignition News. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the regular show. You've turned into the Ignition News this January 3rd, and obviously there's one main topic today. That is, early this morning, the United States military bombed Venezuela's capital city of Caracas and many other locations across the country. The president claims the U.S. forces captured President Nicolas Maduro and his wife and flew them out of the country on the USS Iwo Jima and is bringing them back to New York for prosecution. This has been confirmed now by photographic evidence of the, now former president, Nicolas Maduro, being arrested by and detained by United States military forces. Of course, as we said, and as the international community is waking up, this is an illegal war of aggression. It was launched without congressional authorization, and it has already sparked global condemnation. The president says that the U.S. will now run Venezuela until there is a safe transition. U.S. oil companies, the president announced, will spend billions to take control of Venezuela's oil infrastructure, which many people are not aware has the largest oil infrastructure and reserves in the entire world. So what do we know about this so far? At approximately 2 a.m. Venezuelan time, multiple explosions rocked the city of Caracas. At least 7 blasts were reported with low-flying aircraft seen across the capital. These strikes hit Venezuela's largest military complex. Venezuelan Defense Prime Minister Vladimir Padrino Lopez said American combat helicopters fired rockets and missiles into urban areas. Venezuela's Attorney General reported innocent civilians were killed. The southern area of Caracas lost power. Trump admitted some U.S. soldiers were injured when their helicopter was hit, but claimed no American fatalities. At 4:21 a.m. Eastern Time, Trump posted on his his lying platform, Truth Social, that Maduro and his wife were captured and they were being flown out of the country. Venezuelan Vice President Rodriguez claimed both are missing and demanded proof of life. Trump later posted a photo claiming to show Maduro aboard the USS Iwo Jima. According to CBS News, the operation was carried out only by Delta Force. Trump told Fox News he watched it unfold from Mar-a-Lago. He said, disgustingly, it was like watching a television show. He said military officials had discussed conducting the mission on Christmas Day, but prioritized airstrikes in Nigeria against ISIS targets instead. The Federal Aviation Administration immediately prohibited U.S. commercial aircraft from operating at all altitudes within Venezuelan Air Force. The U.S. Embassy in Caracas issued a shelter-in-place order. Trump declared at a Mar-a-Lago press conference, we are going to run the country until such a time as we can do a safe, proper, judicious transition. So let's be clear about what this actually is. This is factually a coup. This is a coup. This is a regime change. This is the United States bombing a sovereign nation, kidnapping its leader, and announcing plans to occupy the country. The legal authority for this attack is not clear, and that is because there is no legal authority for this attack. Congress did not authorize this war. This, by the way, reminds me of the 1990 invasion of Panama that led to the capture of Noriega, and the 1989 operation in Grenada. Both were illegal and are illegal under international law. There we go. So what is the response, by the way, from around the world? Well, as you might imagine, it's not good. The president of Cuba called it state terrorism against the brave Venezuelan people and demanded urgent international action. Brazilian President Inácio Lula da Silva said the attacks crossed an unacceptable line and represent the worst moments of interference in Latin American politics. He wrote that attacking countries in a flagrant violation of international law is the first step towards a world of violence, chaos, and instability. Mexican President Sheinbaum condemned the military intervention, citing the UN's charter prohibiting the use of force against territorial integrity or political independence of any state. Colombian President Petro called for an emergency meeting of the United Nations and the Organization of the American States. He deployed public forces at the border with Venezuela and assisted forces in the case of a massive refugee influx, which is naturally what we might expect in the situation. Condemnation also coming in from around the world: Chile, Spain, Iran, Russia, China, all condemning the attack. British MP Sultana says Venezuela has the world's largest oil reserves, and it is no coincidence. This is a naked U.S. imperialism, an illegal assault on Caracas aimed at overthrowing a sovereign government and plundering its resources. And she is right, because the President of the United States said the quiet part out loud, which brings us to our next story. Folks, welcome to the Ignition News. We broadcast a live daily show. We are unfiltered, uncensored, and we're not bought by the billionaires. I don't have to run my stories by Bari Weiss or a foreign government before getting permission to talk about what's actually happening in the country right now. Many of you woke up as I did to this disappointing news, and now we're learning exactly nakedly what this is all about. It's all about the oil. We know this because of our next story. It's about the oil. We learned this today because of a press conference at Mar-a-Lago. I would first start out by saying how uncommon and how abnormal it is for the leader of the so-called free world to host a press conference after a military intervention from his shitty hotel resort in Florida. The president said, "We're going to have our very large United States oil companies, the biggest anywhere in the world, go in, spend billions of dollars, fix the badly broken infrastructure, the oil infrastructure, and start making money for the country." He added, "We built Venezuela's oil industry with American talent, drive, and skill, and the socialist regime stole it from us during these previous administration. This constituted one of the largest thefts of American property in the history of our country." Absurdities from the President of the United States, everyone. Venezuela does, in fact, have the world's largest proven oil reserves, approximately 300 billion barrels. That is more, by the way, than Saudi Arabia. But its infrastructure is very old. It does have pipelines that are over 50 years old. Restoring production to just the levels from the 90s is going to require $8 billion in investments. Trump is positioning U.S. oil companies to seize control of these resources. But let us be clear. United States oil companies engaged in this international terrorism should be held accountable for their crimes against humanity as well. They may think that they have their hands clean, but the oil on their hands is the blood of the Venezuelan people. period, full stop. We see you. We understand what you're doing. And any company in the United States of America that thinks that it can engage in this imperialism without consequence should be aware. We are going to vote against this, and there will be accountability. You can't just go into a foreign country and blatantly, nakedly say that we're going to steal the oil. We've seen this before. We know what this is before. To the CEOs sitting at home with your calculus or your abacus, trying to understand, calculating in the back of your head, oh, how much money? How much is my stock going to go up on Monday? How many barrels of oil can we extract from the Venezuelan people? There will be a reckoning for this someday. There will be an accountability for this someday. You may think that this imperial president can keep you safe and protected from accountability and from the law, but once this president and his corrupt administration are gone, we are going to demand and insist on legal accountability. Utilizing United States infrastructure and capitalism to engage in imperialism and war crimes, it's illegal by the United Nations Charter, and there will be accountability. Back to the news. Welcome to the Ignition News. I'm not the only one saying this, by the way. Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez called this out immediately. She said, and I quote, "It's not about drugs. If it was, Trump wouldn't have pardoned one of the largest narco-traffickers in the world last month. It's about oil and regime change, and they need a trial now to pretend that it isn't, especially to distract, of course, from the Epstein files and skyrocketing costs." She's, of course, referencing Trump's president of Honduran President Juan Orlando Hernandez, who was convicted of drug trafficking. Trump claims the Venezuelan operation is about fighting narco-terrorism, but he just pardoned a convicted narco-terrorist and narco-trafficker. Senator Andy Kim stated that Secretaries Rubio and Hegseth looked every senator in the eye a few weeks ago and said that this wasn't about regime change. I didn't trust them then, and now we see that Pete Hegseth blatantly lied to Congress. As I said, there will be accountability for this. Democratic lawmakers are calling the operation illegal. You don't need to call it illegal. It is illegal. Senator Tim Kaine announced that he will force a vote next week on bipartisan resolution declaring the United States should not be at war with Venezuela absent a clear congressional authorization. But now we are about to see if the Congress has a spine made of bone and steel, or if it's just the jello that we have become so accustomed to. The gelatinous slime that makes up the backbone of this Congress needs to harden, and it needs to do it now. It needs to do it now. How many brothers, sisters, family members, sons, daughters have to die in this endless imperialism? But it's not over. If you think that waking up today, if you do nothing, that we just invaded a country, we're going to plug in some United States ships to their oil systems, extract money, and then all of a sudden your gas is going to be cheaper. First of all, you're stupid. You're just fucking stupid. Second, if you think if we don't stand up to this, that this ends here now, I've got news for you. You're stupid. You're just fucking stupid. And I'm not the only one who said this. You know who said it? The President of the United States. Trump appeared on Fox and Friends Saturday morning when asked about Mexico. He said about Scheinbaum, "She's a good woman, but the cartels are running Mexico. She's not running Mexico. The cartels are running Mexico. She's very frightened of the cartels. I asked her numerous times, would you like us to take them out?" He's talking about Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum, a democratically elected leader who just condemned the Venezuelan attack. Trump is openly suggesting now taking military action against Mexico. If you woke up thinking this was just one shocking act by this administration, you are wrong. I don't know what else you need to see, folks. You've got the bruises on the hand, the dementia, the cankles, the unchecked aggression. The United States is now a Christian nationalist fascist dictatorship. I'll let you think about that for a second. He's not just done with Mexico, too, by the way. He got even more explicit about Colombia. Speaking about President Gustavo Petro, he said, "I stick by my first statement. He's making cocaine. They're sending it into the United States. So he does have to watch his ass." That is what the president said. He also said the U.S. is ready to stage a second and much larger attack if we need to do so in Venezuela. This should alarm everyone. This should alarm everyone. Iran, Yemen, Venezuela, the Somalians in Minnesota, Somalia now, Mexico, Colombia. Is Marco Rubio the actual president of the United States of America right now? Is Marco Rubio an unelected president of the United States right now? Are we bombing Venezuela? Are we threatening Mexico? Are we threatening Colombia because Marco Rubio wants to be president someday? Well, Marco Rubio, let me tell you something if you can't fucking hear me with those gigantic ears of yours. We will hold accountable international war crimes. There will be accountability. The American people will vote against this. If you think you can take our democracy from us with this imperialism and dictatorship, let me tell you, you will have to take it from our hands. It's not just Venezuela. It's not just Venezuela. You people have to wake up. You people have to understand this is the cost of your complicity. This is what saying, oh, I don't do politics does to you. This is what that is. I said in November of 2024, and people said I was an idiot. This is what I said, and I'm going to say it right now one more time. These MAGA men and women in their red hats, they are going to be hiding their children in basements. You're going to see them getting arrested on national television for hiding their children in basements. Why are they going to be hiding their children in basements? They're 18-year-olds, they're 19-year-olds, they're 20-year-olds. Because they're not going to want them to fucking go to Venezuela or Colombia or Mexico. And so you're going to see them with their red hats on, thinking that the red hat saved them because they had a red hat. You're going to see them getting arrested for hiding their children from a military draft if this continues. And they will pretend then that they never wanted this. Moving on. The next story. Now, in what would normally be the strangest story of the week, but it is getting buried under the international war, Elon Musk's AI chatbot Grok has been generating sexualized images and calling Donald Trump a pedophile. Wild. Let me explain what's happening. Grok, which is integrated into X, it's the AI chatbot for X, has been fulfilling user requests to generate images which violate its own terms of service. I am actually not going to talk about it on the show because it's so disgusting, but it's very inappropriate and it is very illegal. You're going to want to have to look up the story yourself. But Elon Musk's chatbot is generating some very disgusting. Grok later posted what appeared to be an apology for posting this material. And they said, we've identified lapses in safeguards and are urgently fixing them. But Elon Musk, well, he's been actively engaging with images generated by Grok. On Thursday, he asked Grok to generate an image of himself in a bikini. Here's what gets worse. Users started asking Grok to manipulate images in other ways. One user presented Grok with two images, one of Trump and one of Sean Diddy Combs, and asked it to remove the pedophile from the picture. Guess who it took out of the picture? Oh, thank you for that, whatever that was. It took out the president. When showed side-by-side images of J.D. Vance without facial hair and Erica Kirk, widow of conservative media personality Charlie Kirk, Grok claimed that they were the same person. Multiple governments are now investigating this, obviously, but the point here is that this is why we have the Ignition News. The billionaires are controlling the platforms regardless of the cost, regardless of the damage, whether that's to innocent people, whether that's to children, whether that's breaking the law by posting disgusting things on the internet. You can't trust billionaires to tell you the truth. Everyone who's joining us now, I want to say thank you for joining us on the show. This is The Ignition News. You can go to theignition.news. Follow the show on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, wherever you follow the show. So let us close out the show today. Let us connect the threads. What connects all of the threads of the show today? Well, the United States just bombed a sovereign nation. It just kidnapped its leaders, and it announced that it will occupy and hand its oil resources to American corporations. This was done without congressional approval. It violates international law, and Trump is openly threatening to do it again with Mexico and Colombia. Meanwhile, the richest man on earth, who has unprecedented access to the president and billions of dollars in federal contracts, runs an AI chatbot that is generating sexual abuse material and spreads misinformation, and he is facing zero consequences. Trump can launch wars without Congress. Musk can deploy AI in dangerous ways without regulation. Oil companies can seize Venezuela's resources while Trump calls it making money for the country. And the American people? We're supposed to accept that bombing Venezuela is about fighting drugs, even when Trump pardoned a convicted drug trafficker. We're supposed to believe this is about democracy, even when we're overthrowing a government by force. The pattern is clear. Rules don't apply to the powerful. International law doesn't matter. Congressional authority doesn't matter. Truth doesn't matter. Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is right. This is about oil and regime change. If we don't speak up now, if we don't demand action, if we don't demand an intervention, if we don't deal with the accountability of an AI system generating abuse material, What is to become of us? 70% of American citizens oppose another war. The global community is against us. We are turning our backs on everyone, and now they are turning their backs on us. But most importantly, if our government does nothing, they are, of course, turning their backs on you. You woke up on January 3rd today. You woke up on a historic day. But history, my friends, is in your hands. Accountability is in your hands. This is your country. And this is your January 3rd episode of the Ignition News. Thank you for tuning in, and remember to follow us on all of your favorite platforms.